These three lenses have been sitting on my desk for a little while now, and I kept asking myself, how do I review manual cinema lenses without just filming some random stuff? So I decided to do something a little bit different. I called my friend Hannah, who recently opened this beautiful little bakery, grabbed my Lumix S1 II, packed these three lenses, and spent a couple of mornings trying to make a proper short film. Every shot you are about to see was filmed with one of these three lenses. Once you've said it, I'll take you behind the scenes and show you exactly how I made it, which lens I chose for each part of the shoot, what I loved and what nearly drove me mad. Check this out.
My name's Hannah and I am the owner of Juno Bakery. I got a recipe book for my birthday 3 years ago and I was flicking through it and I was like, I want to make all of these things. So I then went to Paris and learnt to make croissants, and then I did like a bread and patisserie course. And yeah, I've always been such a lover of baking and eating baked goods and going to bakeries that I thought, why not do it myself? I feel like I'm doing it, or the moment that has felt like I'm doing it, when we get regular customers. Like, that's when I'm like, okay, I am doing something right. I've made it. And Juno's the Roman goddess of women. So when I was deciding on a name for the bakery, I ideally wanted an adjective, like a bakery kind of adjective, and they were either all taken or none just, I don't know, fit, didn't feel right. Because we're from Lancashire, when you say, do you know, it comes out as, do you know? So, do you know what we could do? Do you know what, like, I could bake? Do you know, the colour scheme? So it felt right. The tortoise stands for steadfastness and longevity and wisdom, and then that, when combined with Juno, it's kind of all-encompassing and just fit the bakery and what I wanted the bakery to be. I hope people keep coming back because they see the passion, they see that everything is homemade, that everything is baked in this small, tiny bakery. You know, nothing is bought in. Not only are you getting an amazingly and super delicious croissant, you know, you're getting a moment of your time spent well, that you want to come and spend another moment of your time at Juno Bakery. But the future for Juno is just to keep creating, just to keep making food that I'm proud of. I just want to keep making people happy.
I absolutely loved making that. It also taught me a lot about these lenses because I wasn't just testing them for a couple of hours. I was actually trying to create something with them. Before we get into each lens individually, there's one feature I think deserves a mention because it's something I wish more manufacturers would do. These are the Sirui Vision Prime 1 lenses, or VP1. This is the second set in the series. I already reviewed the 24, 35 and 50mm lenses, and these complete the lineup with a 15mm, a 75 and this 150mm macro. The really clever thing is that they all use interchangeable mounts. So whatever you shoot on L mount, like me, Sony E, Canon RF or Nikon Z, you don't need to buy a completely different version of the lens. You can simply swap the mount yourself with a supplied screwdriver. 75mm, my favorite look and my biggest challenge. I filmed Hannah's interview with the 75mm and honestly, I loved the look. It's incredibly sharp, the colors are beautiful and the subject separation is gorgeous. For static shots like this, it was fantastic. But as soon as I picked up the camera up, everything changed. Shooting handheld with a manual 75mm at the fairly wide aperture isn't easy. I missed focus quite a lot. I even tried stopping the lens down a little to give myself a bit more depth of field and make manual focusing easier, but honestly it made very little difference. Eventually I got the shots I wanted, but I had to work for every single one. It wasn't just keeping up with the movement in front of the camera, but also the variations of distance when hand holding the camera and trying to focus manually at the same time. I absolutely hated the process. Of course, I could have closed the aperture down even further and made my life easier, but I really liked the look I was getting. That shallow depth of field gave the images exactly the feel I was after. So for me, it was worth the extra effort. Every time I got the shot right, it looked absolutely beautiful. So while I probably wouldn't choose this lens for fast-moving handheld work, I would reach for it again in a heartbeat when I have a little more control over the situation. Static subject. 15mm, where everything came together. Next, I wanted to get some moving shots and show a bit more of the bakery. It's a pretty small place, so a wide-angle lens made a lot of sense. 15mm was absolutely perfect for this. I used this lens on Lumix S1R2, mounted on Hohem MT3 Pro gimbal, and controlled focus using the follow focus and the gimbal's control wheel. The experience couldn't have been more different. Being a much wider lens, it was naturally far more forgiving, and even shooting manually, I found it much easier to keep my subjects in focus while moving. Even combining with stepping the aperture down just a little, manual focusing suddenly became enjoyable rather than frustrating. I could concentrate on the movement of the shot instead of constantly worrying about whether I'd nail the focus. That freedom let me be much more creative. I was able to move through the bakery, follow Hannah around, get low or high angles, get close, and capture shots that simply wouldn't have been possible with the 75mm. The lens itself is beautifully sharp right across the frame, and one thing I really liked was the way it renders point light sources. The starburst look is fantastic and just add a little bit of character to certain shots. Out of the three lenses, this was definitely the easiest one to use, and if I had to do this whole shoot again, it'd probably be the lens I'd reach for first. One thing I really appreciated was the consistency. All 6 Vision Prime lenses have the focus and aperture gears in exactly the same place, so every lens changed to just a few seconds. I didn't have to move the follow focus or readjust anything in my rig. 150mm macro. The final lens I used was the 150mm macro, and this one completely changed the pace of the shoot. Unlike the other 2 lenses, I kept this one on the tripod for the entire time. I wasn't really shooting true macro, more close-up detail shots of the pastries, coffee, and everything that makes a bakery feel alive. Considering it's a manual 150mm macro lens, focusing actually wasn't as difficult as I expected. Working from a tripod made it much easier to be precise and really take my time with each shot. What I did notice though was just how much magnification you get at this focal length. Even with quite a solid tripod setup, every tiny movement became visible. Turning the follow focus, touching the camera, or even people walking across the bakery floor introduced little vibrations that you'd never notice with the other 2 lenses. That's not really a criticism of the lens, it's simply the reality of working with this much magnification. And it's something worth keeping in mind if you're planning to shoot this kind of close-up work. One thing I did notice was quite a lot of focus breathing when changing focus between close and more distant subjects. It wasn't really an issue for the way I was shooting, but it's definitely there if that's something that's important to you. The results though were absolutely worth it. The amount of detail, the background separation, and the overall image quality looked fantastic. Conclusion, when Sirui sent me these lenses, I wanted to review them differently. Rather than talking about specifications, I wanted to go out and actually make something with them. After spending some time filming with all 3, each lens definitely found its own place. The 75mm gave me some of my favorite shots from the whole project, but it also demanded the most from me. The 50mm was the lens I felt most comfortable with. It was the easiest to use, especially on the gimbal, and probably the one I'd reach for first if I had to do this shoot all over again. The 150mm macro gave me some beautiful close-up shots. It slowed the whole process down, but in a good way, and really made me think about every single shot. None of these lenses are easy. There were moments during this shoot when I was wondering why I wasn't just using autofocus lenses, but then I look back at the footage and I remember exactly why. The process wasn't always enjoyable, but the results certainly were. These lenses definitely aren't for everyone, but if you enjoy shooting manually and don't mind putting a bit more work, more effort into getting the shot, I think they're incredibly rewarding to use. Thank you so much to Sirui for sending me this second set to review. As always, they had no input into anything you've seen in this video, and all opinions are entirely my own. As always, thank you so much for watching. YouTube is recommending this video for you next, so check it out. I'll see you in the next one.